All right, you guys, today we have an awesome episode in store. We have Steven on. He just completed an over 100-day juice fast, and I don't think it was his first one. He's also done water fasting and been 5 years, 100% plant-based. And he's learned many things that can inspire you guys out there. So let's hop into it. And it's also take your kids to work day. So my girls are here with me for the intro of this podcast. They're going to help out a bit. And I think Victoria has the first question. Do you want to ask Steven something to start out? You're gonna ask what made him get into juicing. Go ahead. Victoria wants to ask, so you recently completed 100 days juicing, right?
I did
What led you
107.
into 107? So what
Yeah.
initially led you into juicing?
So I've been doing it for a few years. I haven't really done a long one. At one point, I did a 24-day fast. It was like 1 day of juice, 2 days of water, and it was like a repetitive cycle where I ended up doing like 13 days of juice and 12 days of water or something. That
Yeah.
was fast in total. So I did that in 2021. And other than that, just the past few years, I've been doing a lot of like 5 to 8 day juice fasts and have just been made me feeling so good. I just have, continued to do it. And then at the beginning of the year, I wanted to do a long one.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And I did 107 days. I did it from the 1st of January
Yeah.
to April 17th. So I
And
just
so how did the long one compare to the shorter ones? Did you notice like drastically different benefits and a drastically different experience doing so long?
Yeah, I noticed a lot. So one thing I did too is I didn't use any psyllium husk or bentonite clay. And I did that specifically because I wanted to see like what really this mucoid plaque thing was and exactly how much of it I had. And I feel like from what I've seen, because I've been doing a lot of research on this stuff over the years, it seems like that psyllium husk and bentonite clay works great and is like a great binder and stuff, but also you do see in like the documentation of a lot of it that a lot of the times what they're letting out is a lot of the husk and the clay too. So I wanted to see what I let out, and I ended up still having a lot of that. If you want to get into that topic at some point, there was a lot of mucoid plaque that I
Wow. And you didn't use any of the
not
husk or
one.
wow, that's cool. So how long did it take to come out and why do you think it came out? Like what type of protocol were you doing?
Well, really, it didn't have a specific protocol. I have a NAMA J2
Yeah.
and I just was making my own juices. I did a very little fruit juice at the beginning. The first month of January, I was doing like about 16 ounces of fruit juice a day, like very little amounts. And then obviously in my green juices, I'd put a little bit of apple to sweeten it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't have really a specific protocol. But to answer your
Yeah.
question, I didn't really start seeing it come out until about day. Um,
Okay. Sorry for the distraction
no,
over here. Okay, do
no,
you want to
it's
go
okay.
have lunch with May now so we can talk about the topics? No? You're okay, okay. Okay, sorry, carry on.
No, you're okay. So I didn't see it start to come out till about day 20-ish. And unfortunately, I didn't feel like I was completely empty till about day 95. I still don't know if I was. I may have not been completely empty by then, but was definitely showing signs of pretty much being done as far as getting that stuff out by around day 95. But it took that long. And that was like, a lot of exercising and a lot of saunas and a lot of juices. For the fasting I've done over the years, I was not expecting for it to take that long, but
Yeah, wow. Well, and like a big congratulations too. To do over 100 days, that's amazing. Sorry, we are not trying to brag over here. We are just
you
like
should brag. That's a great
over
accomplishment.
over 100 days. Like that's total goals. You know what? This is actually the first time I filmed since both my parents passed away. They passed away back to back this year,
I
like
know.
within
I
15
saw.
days. And so I feel like I need a cleanse. I've been just drinking too much matcha, too much cacao, and I could use a juice cleanse. So I'm so excited about this topic and to do that many days. Like I've only done 37 days before, so I can only imagine. And it must have been such a spiritual experience too. So maybe go through like, oh, and first of all, okay, I would love for you to go through like the spiritual benefits and the all the benefits you experience. But also, I want to let you guys know for this week only, Nama, you use the Nama you said, right? They've given
Yeah.
us a special code. If you guys want a Nama juicer, you can save $75. So it's the biggest code out there, the biggest discount in the world right now, this week only. So I'll put that down below. And then, yeah, if you could go through the spiritual and the benefits, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So,
Okay, okay. Stop sweating.
really,
What are
I
you doing?
got all of that out of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, most people go into the juice fast for the physical benefits to clean the bowels, to, heal maybe a chronic illness if they have that. I didn't really go into it for that specifically. I went into it in pretty good shape and pretty healthy. I just got a lot of good physical benefits, and then as well the spiritual came in. One thing I will say is my sleep was incredible during this fast, which I didn't expect because a lot of these short fasts, when you do 2, 5, 8 days, for me personally, like my sleep wouldn't be the best because I would be going through like a lot of rough detox pretty early on, but I really prepped for this one. My sleep was incredible. So for me, getting that really good sleep and consistent REM sleep, I stayed on a really good sleep schedule. That was making my dreams just so vivid. And as far as like spiritual healing and like emotional healing and stuff like that, I was able to go through a lot of like childhood trauma stuff in my dreams that I was able to really
Wow.
work through very smoothly to where it was like almost like I had like some sort of guide throughout this where it was just like, you're dealing with a lot of the physical stuff, when you're
Yeah.
dreaming, we'll go through a lot of the spiritual, emotional childhood stuff. And yeah, this was like much more than just a physical cleanse. It was, spiritual, emotional. I got a lot closer. I already have been pretty close to my family, but was able to get a lot closer. So I live in California. I moved out here about 5 years ago. My family lives all the way in Maryland on the other side of the country. Unfortunately, around like day 20-ish, my uncle passed. So I had to fly out to Maryland and I brought my Nama with me and everything to maintain the juice fast. It was like somewhere between day 25 to like 45. I was in Maryland for the fast. So I was able to connect with my family a lot more and unfortunately go through a funeral during something like this. I wasn't really planning on that, but yeah, I was able to accomplish a lot during this fast. One thing I was impressed with was I wasn't just getting the physical, benefits. It was a lot of everything that I got out of it.
See, and that's amazing. It just goes to show too, you can make it happen no matter where you are, right? Because I think a lot of people think I can't make it work with my job or I have to travel or this and that. But I feel like also, like once you get into it, you start to feel so good that like that's your motivation. You just make it happen, right? Like how long did it take you to actually feel good? And was it overall a really good experience, or were there a lot of hard days and you really had to push yourself?
That's a great question. I definitely did have some hard days. So just just because I've been doing a lot of fasting over the years, like I've done a 5 day water fast, 8 day water fast. All of 2024 leading up to this, I fasted accumulatively 130 days. That wasn't long fast. It was just, a lot of 2 to 5 day fasts that I ended up tracking
Mm.
to seeing that I ended up fasting 130 days last year. And I really went all in on this juice fast. I had a pretty long beard, pretty long hair. I shaved everything to start this. I made it as like I wanted to shave my beard and head and just like have a little motivation to just completely reset. So that was like something I did to keep me motivated. But what I also did was I didn't drink much juice, much fluids in general the first month. I only drank about 2 liters a day, which isn't much, and that's total of fluids. To where it took me a little bit longer to feel good. I would say about day 20 to 25, I got through my first big hump. I was still exercising and going to the gym and running miles almost every day and hitting the sauna, but it was just like I really had to push myself to go do that. And to be fair, I don't recommend anyone drink 2 liters a day on a juice fast. I think 4 to 6 to 8, depending on where you're starting and how hydrated you are going into it,
Hmm.
um, is definitely better. I just was just it's just kind of how I started it for some reason. I don't know. I was doing like 1.5 liters of green juice, like my own version of the lemon ginger blast that I make, and then about 16 ounces of fruit juice, 16 ounces of water was about my basic juice intake for January.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, that took me about 20 days to start feeling good.
20 days. Wow. And then, so how did you eat before you got into the juice fast? And did you do anything to prepare for the juice fast?
So 5 years ago, what introduced me to the plant-based lifestyle was the Dr. Sebi diet. I had a friend who was into it, and I had no intention on being like 100% plant-based. I remember there was a day, and I actually have the day tracked on my phone. It was July 17th, 2020. I ate a pizza. It was like a medium pizza. I didn't eat like a whole pizza. It was a lot, but I didn't feel my greatest, and I was just like, something's
Yeah.
got to change. So I was like, I'm gonna do 30 days on this Sebi diet, see how I feel. And I just never went back. So what I've done since then, since I've been doing a lot of fasting years down the line, is now I don't really like the title so much, but like basically
Hmm.
raw, like
Hmm.
all of 2024, the only thing I did have that was cooked was like maybe some hummus or there was like one time I had some soup. That was the only thing I had the whole year that was warm and was very little oil and salt. So I that was my prep for the juice fast was like all of 2024 and a good bit of 2023 of basically raw, besides
Wow.
some hummus and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. And so how did going plant-based change your life? Like you obviously did because you never look back. Dr. Sebi's what led me into raw. So
Wow.
like did you notice big changes obviously when you went plant-based? And then what about like plant-based versus raw? Do you notice big difference in those?
Yeah, so my dad works at a slaughterhouse. I know that's like kind of
Mhm.
like a crazy switch, but yeah, so I grew up on heavy meats. I mean, my whole life, even ultra processed food was a huge part of my diet, having McDonald's like multiple times a week and also eating a lot of like fresh, I guess you can call it fresh, like meat from my dad's slaughterhouse that he works at. A lot of times I was getting a lot of stuff that was slaughtered like that day or the day prior and stuff. So I don't know. I always thought like digestive issues, like having some acne here and there, being inflamed, being a little chubby, like I always thought that was like normal. But as soon as I went plant-based and I started exercising more, of course, and getting more sun, it was right around the same time I moved to the West Coast to California where there's better weather. I kind of got blessed as far as how things worked out for me because I went plant-based in a better area and I was able to kind of incorporate a lot of exercise with the plant-based lifestyle, but I just started noticing my skin cleared up immediately. My energy levels went through the roof. My self-expression just got so much better overall. I feel like between me using cannabis a lot as a kid and the plant-based lifestyle, I was just kind of more numb, or sorry, the animal-based lifestyle, I was just more numb from the cannabis and just eating so much meat. That's one thing I noticed as I became a lot more open and be able to express myself way more freely when I started this. But besides that, and just overall feeling better, looking better, having my family being like, wow, you look a lot healthier. Like, what are you doing? Things like that. That was what I noticed initially with plant-based. And then with raw, I would say when I finally started to let in a lot more of that and really be consistent with that, because I still have yet to have like a raw gourmet phase. Like when I went raw, I went all like high water content raw, like nice salads and lots of fruit. And, I didn't really have much of like the dehydrated stuff. So I feel like I responded very well to all of that. I just feel like everything I'm saying that I got from plant-based lifestyle, the energy levels, I feel like my eyes got a little bit bluer as well. Like everything just elevated when I started to let in more raw food. I do think like the life force and just the vitality in that food that you're keeping in the food does a big thing for you and how you feel. I will say it did seem like there was a little bit of a time period where I had to adapt to raw food. For example, like I noticed like greens and stuff like that, like it took me a little bit to get used to them. I felt like just because, for example, a lot of times I'd have like cooked mushrooms or like cooked vegetables and stuff when I was eating cooked plant-based. With that stuff already being kind of broken down, it seemed like it was like digesting faster necessarily. But now, once I've adapted to raw food, now it just digests it's all perfect now. But it did seem like there was a little bit of a transition period.
Yeah, and I want to say I think it's great you didn't have a gourmet stage, like because the high
Yeah.
water content, just eating like the natural foods, that's the best way, in my opinion. I've definitely had my gourmet phases, and nothing compares to just eating like the whole foods, like the high water content. Like that's when you're gonna truly feel your best and
Yeah.
just feel more like your highest self and everything. And you said your dad with the slaughterhouse. So is your dad supportive of your new lifestyle?
Yeah, yeah. So with me being across the country, we don't see each other much. We still keep in contact and stuff. And obviously it's like it's two different worlds, you know what I mean? Like doing what I'm doing and doing what he's doing. And I have no judgment towards any of it. I mean, I couldn't judge it. I did it most of my life. It would be crazy for me to just all of a sudden be judgmental of what,
Hmm.
I did my whole
Exactly.
life and he's still doing. I know some of us who like transition and start to feel so good. I know some of us we can get kind of pushy. I'll speak for myself here. I know sometimes we can get a little pushy as far as like, I want you to feel how I feel, try this, try that. I definitely had a phase of that at the beginning. But no, he honestly because of just how I've changed emotionally and just how I express myself now, he is like he loves it. He thinks it's better. He could see that I am a much better person treating myself this way. It definitely is a big mental aspect, I think. I do
Yeah.
personally believe, my personal opinion, I do think like your mind state and exercise may be the most important thing out of everything. But for me, the diet keeps my mental good and keeps makes my exercise improve to where it kind of keeps me at a good pace of keeping my mental good, getting it better, and things like that. So I do see a lot of people in this world who they don't need to kind of be super dialed in on their diet, like how I like to be and stuff. I do see that like where you're at mentally, how you perceive things seems to be the ultimate goal as far as where you want to be. I want to be raw for life personally
Hmm.
and just still kind of like I feel like it's just going to elevate everything in my life mentally, physically, emotionally, all that. But yeah, there wasn't much problems with me transitioning with my family or anything.
Yeah, that's amazing. And would you say your outer world has changed at all? Because I know a lot of times if we really deeply start taking care of ourselves like you have and make those conscious efforts and we raise our vibe, we feel better. Like usually that becomes a reflection on the outside and usually a lot of things in our life change, like maybe our friends, our career, like a lot of things. I mean, you move too. Has your life changed at all outside of you too, or has it sort of remained the same?
Yeah. I notice now that I've become much more spiritual. I mean, I wasn't really I believe we're all spiritual, but like I wasn't really on like an intentional spiritual path before all of this. But now I do, I'm much more in belief of like manifestation and kind
Hmm.
of like attracting what you are and things like that. To where, yeah, I mean, I've gotten some great people in my life. I have some great friends, that I've made over the years, kind of attracting them based off my new lifestyle and stuff like that. I do feel like my life overall, when I compare it from moving from Baltimore City to the mountains in California, it's just like two different worlds. So everything has just been better ever since I did that in my opinion. But yeah, I really give the plants so much credit for my growth just
Yeah.
because they kind of influenced a lot of it. I do think the gut brain connection that people talk about is so true. And when you kind of start to clean out the gut a lot more, you become to be a lot more clear. Your intentions and your overall goals in life become a lot more clear as far as what you want, what your ethics are, who you want in your life, who you want to attract, things like that. But yeah, everything just got better.
Yeah, I love that. And have there been any other tools along your way that you've used to like cleanse and detox besides like the plants and the juicing? Like, have you used enemas, colonics, herbs, or like anything you feel like have really helped elevate you too?
Yeah, so I would say the big thing that comes off the top of my head is the enemas. And I think they could be very, very helpful for someone who does a juice faster. Just in general, my personal opinion with enemas and colonics is I think they shouldn't be used like daily or anything. Because from what I understand, we have these
Yeah.
muscles in our stomach and stuff like that. You can kind of loosen that up and make it to where your bowel movements and your digestion isn't what it's supposed to be unless you use an enema or a colonic. But I do think they can be a really powerful tool. And I personally was doing enemas maybe once a week, a lot of times, maybe once every 2 weeks during my juice fast. And over the years, I've done them as well periodically. I think they can really, really help. And they also give you a better gauge as far as how empty you are and how clean you're getting. Like, for example, you can do like a much more bigger enema if you're more empty and you can
Hmm.
kind of get more out of it. As much as I personally do not enjoy the experience of the enemas and stuff, it's not fun. It's not something I enjoy at all. But when you're all done with it and you get out what you need to get out, I think it's a great tool and it's always worth it at the end. So I highly recommend those.
Yeah, me too. And so at the end of your juice fast, how I forgot to ask you, I think, how did you break it? Because I know when you don't eat, like I think you said you did 106 or 107 days, when you don't eat
Yeah.
for that amount of time, I think we have to be careful, right? How we break it and how we like get back into refeeding. So how did you break it? What did your refeeding experience look like? And overall, looking back, what would you say is the best part of the juice cleanse?
So that's a great question, by the way. I am still in the refeeding process. So I stopped it on April 17th. Today is April 24th. So I'm still in the refeeding process. And the way I started it was the first 2 days of refeeding. I did my juices until about noon, 1 o'clock. And then I would do a smoothie and then a little bit of yogurt. I don't know if you're familiar with Coconut Cult.
Yeah.
They're, oh my
Their
God.
their yogurt's really good. I tried it once.
It is incredible, and I was able to get my hands on their like limited edition apple pie flavor that I had
No way.
stored.
My dream is to do a collab with them, like a raw yogurt collab. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, so and luckily just because of the way, so it's a, I'm sure you know, but if the audience doesn't know, Coconut Cult is a fermented coconut yogurt, and they use living probiotics that they keep alive before they start to do the fermentation process, and they put a prebiotic in there with the probiotic to help it merge together and work very well on the body. So with me, I was very aggressive on my juice fast with the ginger, the lemon, the cayenne pepper. I even found so I don't know if you're familiar with like the spicy, how they like measure spiciness with like spicy peppers. Like for example, cayenne pepper is like 30,000 IU typically. I found
Okay.
a cayenne pepper that is 90,000 IU. It's like a specific strain of cayenne that's just like 3 times as spicy. It was very powerful. I recommend
Wow.
anyone who is trying to speed up the bowel movement process and speed up the detoxification and honestly feel really good. That 90,000 IU cayenne pepper from I believe it's like Frontier Co-op. It's a big it's a big spice brand. If anyone gets getting their herbs and spices, they're familiar with the brand. That stuff was powerful. But I do believe from using so much ginger, so much lemon, so much of that cayenne, I even started doing a little bit of garlic in some of my like wellness shots I was making during the fast and stuff. I do believe I was killing a lot of bad bacteria and as well as a lot of good bacteria.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I feel like when we do deep cleanses and we come from a diet that isn't the greatest, sometimes we got to kill off the good and the bad and have a good reset. And that's
True.
really what I was okay with doing. So that's why the coconut cult was a great thing. I was happy to have to let in that fermented coconut yogurt for all the good bacteria that's in it to kind of start letting that into my body smooth. But I kind of went on a side tangent right there. I'm sorry. It was two
No,
days
but
of
I'm
that.
thinking too, like you want to put good things into your gut after all that, right? You don't want to
Yeah,
like, it's like so important because you just put in all that work. You want to really stay
exactly.
disciplined because I think it can be easy for people to romanticize and fantasize about all these things on the juice cleanse they're going to eat. And then maybe some people might spiral. And it's like, you got to make sure you don't do that because you just put in all this hard work, right?
Yeah. And that was one thing I focused on. It got to the point from like probably day 40 to 107 on the juice fast. I was really just prioritizing nourishment, not taste. So I was doing these green juices that just had so much cilantro, so much parsley, so much dill, so much ginger, so much dandelion greens. It wasn't the most enjoyable thing to drink, but I didn't do it for that. I did it for nourishment and to heal the body. But to answer your question, 2 days of smoothies and yogurts. That was how I started it. And then just because of what I just said, how I was focusing on nourishment and not necessarily taste, I broke my fast with a cucumber, just a cucumber. And I did that just as like a statement to my mind and body that like focus on this. The good thing about a raw food diet is fruit tastes amazing. Honestly,
Hmm.
I love avocado, greens, onions, things like that. So when I can get to that point, in which I think in a few days I'll be ready, it's all going to taste great. But I wanted to start with something a little neutral, which is like a cucumber. Most people, that's probably not on their top of their list of what to break their fast with, but that's what
Hmm.
I personally did. Shortly after that, about an hour or two later, I had a mango.
Mm.
Um, and then I believe that was it that day. And these past few days, just been the same thing. Starting the day with juices.
Hmm.
Uh,
Makes sense.
probably
That's
have a
good.
yeah, probably have a smoothie and then a little bit of fruit. What I just did, not yesterday or the day before, is over the years I created my own coconut milk pesto recipe that is just
Hmm.
amazing, and I made that with some zucchini noodles. I wanted to try that instead of a salad first, maybe something a little bit lighter and less ingredients.
Hmm.
I responded very well to that, and that's a very simple recipe to where that's like kind of been my next step. And I think I have some more fresh coconut milk I made, so I think I'm gonna make some more of that today, that same recipe.
Cool.
Hopefully 2 or 3 days, have a salad, and then that's just that's just what I was already doing before I did the juice fast. So that's gonna be what it is from here on out. Lots of fruit, lots of salads, smoothies. I don't really consume that much. A lot of times, like my basic meals would just be like maybe a smoothie in the morning or like late afternoon, or
Hmm.
sorry, early afternoon, and then a salad. And that
Yeah,
would be like a typical day. And a lot of times do a lot of juice fasting in the process. A lot of times I don't mind doing 5, 10 days a month of juicing every month, just
that's
as a good
good.
reset. Because it really, you do start to notice, like my digestion is very good. But you do start to notice that it's hard to make it perfect if you eat a lot. When you do the juice fasting regularly, you really start to see that, because you'll start to see, oh wow, I'm on day 2, 3 of juicing. I haven't eaten anything, still letting out, still having bowel
Yeah.
movements. It's clear. It's For me personally, I really enjoy eating when I'm empty and just
Yeah.
kind of just going
Yeah,
through that.
absolutely. And what would you say, like with all the juice fasting experience you have, what is the best part, like your favorite part about it, about juicing?
Oh man, that's a hard question. That's a great question, but it's a hard one. I would say the lightness and the nourishment. So it's like you're getting so much nutrients, especially if you're doing like I was doing a lot of like complex like carrot and beet juices and my green juice I was just talking about, where like you're letting in so many different raw foods in one drink.
Hmm.
And like so you're getting so much life force, but it's light, it's going through you, and you kind of can go through this process. Once you learn like your hydration levels, you kind of figure out what's hydrating me and what's just drinking too much to where it's just kind of flushing out of me. And when you find that good middle ground, you just feel so good. And like
Hmm.
I just feel like more of my authentic self comes out when I am not full. And that's
Hmm.
just I would say that's
True.
the best thing about juicing.
That's well said. And okay, water fasting too. So you've done water fasting, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And how has that been a good experience? That's one thing I've never done. Did you like it?
Yeah, it's just much one thing I've noticed with food in particular, even if it's juicing, I mean that's still calories and nutrients. I still consider juicing food in a way. It's just with the water fasting, depending on where you're at on a detox level, it just becomes a mental battle, just like a long juice fast. For me, that's what I started to notice. When I could still run 5 miles straight on day 90 of a juice fast, like, and I was physically feeling good. Like it was just starting to notice it was more of a mental battle at that point. And with
Hmm.
water fasting, it's kind of an elevated version of that. From what most people say, I'm sure you've heard it too. There's much more like spiritual benefits you get out of that, because it's just you go into ketosis way faster and you're detoxing way faster. It's just different in my opinion. So I've done a lot, multiple dozens of like 48-hour water fast. I've done a 5 day water fast, and I've done multiple 5 day water fasts, and I've done an 8 day water fast. That was the longest I've ever done personally. I could see myself in the future, when I rebuild a little bit more. I definitely want to put on some weight and maybe in the future do a 2 week water fast, maybe 30 days or something. But I recommend it to people, but for me personally, if someone asked me like, what would you recommend, juice or water? I would recommend clearing the bowels first,
Hmm.
which is typically a juice fast, or maybe
Yeah.
high fruit, a few days, high fruit, high water content raw, going into juice, getting the bowels empty, maybe doing some enemas and stuff like that, then
Hmm.
going into water, because you do see that your digestion is much different on water.
Hmm.
And I did just watch your podcast with Lauren Lockman. That was an amazing podcast, by the way. He
Yeah,
is,
thanks. He's awesome. And he looks so good in real life too, because I see him in person. He's just so calm and like glowing and really looks really well. He's like 65 too, right? He looks
yeah,
good. Yeah. So yeah, obviously he knows so much about water fasting and does long-term ones with people. But even 8 days that you did, like that's still really good, right?
yeah. But one thing that I'll finish off with that topic is that's the only reason why I stand by like cleaning out the body more first before. Although I don't think Lauren recommends juicing necessarily.
No, he
Um,
doesn't. He's not into
yeah,
juicing. Yeah.
which I could totally get. It's not necessarily the most natural thing, by any means. Just in my opinion, me eating McDonald's for years and stuff like that wasn't
Yeah.
natural. and me eating meat and bacon in every meal for 24 years wasn't natural. So it's like for me, the juicing has been a tool to get out all that unnatural stuff. And
Me too.
it's honestly, it's an awesome tool. But one thing I did hear him say on that podcast is how some people, when they refeed, they don't have a bowel movement for a few days, and then they end up letting out
Mm,
a lot of stuff. And I do feel like you can kind of bypass that by clearing the bowels first, by doing the juicing and maybe a bunch of high fiber raw if you're not already doing that.
hmm
Uh, right before you get into the water fast. That way, you're going to have less detoxification symptoms. This stuff that's still stuck in you is going to be out of you. So,
hmm
you won't have to deal with that when you're doing the water fast. But I do think there's so much more that you can get out of a water fast compared to a juice fast. I feel like they both have their benefits.
Yeah.
But I do think water fasting could maybe be more of an advanced level of fasting, you
That's what
know?
I hear. That's what you hear people say, like people that have done both. I think like Jeff Juices says that, and it's like more advanced. Makes sense. But I
Right.
think juicing is easier for a lot of people, probably. But I
Definitely. That's
mean, another thing, like you've been living this lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle for a while now, 5 years, right? Like a lot of people struggle to get through 5 days, maybe even 5 hours, because it can be really hard, right? A lot of this stuff, a lot of the things out there, stimulants or different things people are addicted to. And so, what would you say have been your keys to like staying on track and staying motivated through like all this 5 years plant-based and the juicing and everything and not like turning back to the other side? Or have you had slip-ups where you're just like, I'm going to McDonald's, like, oh, that was a mistake?
that's another great question. So I haven't. The one slip up I did have is unfortunately a few years ago. There is a place that I would get this wrap from where it's like all raw wrap, except that I get hummus on it. So hummus, technically, unless you sprout it, isn't raw. And the wrap itself wasn't raw, but I would get all raw ingredients on it.
Mhm.
Long story short, one time they gave me a wrap that had chicken in it. And I had like 3 or 4 bites of it, and I was I was like, wow, I can't remember this tasting this good. And then all of a sudden I look at it and I see what I'm eating. So unfortunately, right there, I did have, like 3 or 4 bites of chicken. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. And about around the same time, maybe even like 4 years ago, there was a period of time where I was taking some herbal capsules, and they were made out of gelatin, which I wasn't even familiar with what gelatin was at the time. If anyone isn't familiar, it's like animal bones and ligaments and stuff, to where gelatin is not plant-based. Other than that, I've been very strict with it 100%, to where I'm that annoying guy who's going to ask questions if I'm going out to eat and stuff. And most of the time, I'd rather just make it myself because I hate being that guy asking a bunch of questions at a restaurant, me personally. But some things that I recommend that have helped me be accountable for staying on the path is having a fridge full of plant-based stuff, especially if for some reason, well, this can go both ways, but let's say you're still on like cooked plant-based and that's your path, meal prepping. And that's what I love about raw so much is like your meal prep can just be chopping up some onions and cucumbers and having some greens at the fridge and making a dressing, could last you a few days. But doing that sort of meal prep, that way, you're kind of accountable. For me, it's like a mental thing where it's like if I like now I'm at the point, I'd say by like year two, I got to this point where it was like so many benefits. It was like I would notice if I even had that thought in my head to eat like animal product or something like that, I would notice it was more like emotional. That would be like the actual root of why I would even want to do that.
Mm,
So for me, my solution to that was to sit with myself or to maybe eat a little bit extra plant-based, eat a bigger meal or something like that. But huge thing that is helpful is keeping yourself accountable by having a fridge full of stuff. Because
mm,
that way it's like it's one step harder where it's like, oh no, all this stuff's gonna go bad if I go back to the animal stuff, or if I know if I eat that one meal, it's gonna be because this cooked food, especially the animal products, they're very addicting and they taste very good. I would be a fool to say that they don't taste good. I mean, that's not why I stopped eating them. I did it for ethical and health reasons. That's why I personally did it. But yeah, things like that, keeping yourself accountable by having a full fridge
yeah.
and just really sitting with yourself when you have these cravings and to
Yeah.
see, do I really need that? Or do I want that? Is that going to help me? that's up for that individual to, say, yeah, I do need it, or no, I don't need it. This is emotional. But most of the time, especially, feel like most people at the beginning, you will begin to see a lot of it's just emotional. And it's like, you just got to work through that. That's one big thing.
True.
A lot of people go back to the animal-based lifestyle is maybe there's some emotions they're not ready to face, don't want to face. And then that's one thing some people don't realize, I think, is that the plant-based lifestyle isn't just physical healing. You got to face your shadow, you got to face your darkness. It gets to a point where your body gets clean enough to where, like, this trauma, let's say you have trauma, it's stored in the body and it's going to come out eventually from cleansing the body so much to where you could face it, you can run away from it. That's all up to us that however we choose to do that. But that's what I recommend.
Yeah, good point. Good advice. I like what you said too about keeping the fridge stocks because I feel like too, the more it's there, the more we'll eat it, and the more plants we eat, and the more we change our lifestyle, then the more we crave those foods, right? As our gut changes, like that's what you actually start wanting. I think people have a hard time wrapping their heads around that because their gut and their cravings are based around different foods, so they don't really want those foods. But once you start eating those foods, then those are the foods you want. So it's just like a win-win. And would you say you think your health is better now because of all these changes than it would be if you didn't make any of those changes 5 years ago?
Yes. If I'm being fully transparent, I think yes now. And for the past few years, much healthier. And even at the beginning of my plant-based lifestyle, much healthier. But somewhere in the middle of these 5 years, it does get to a point where, like, depending on what you're eating, I do believe in kind of that transition that you need to do, as far as maybe not everyone can go straight raw. For me, I noticed, the cooked mushrooms when I was getting off the meats was huge and crucial because of the textures,
Hmm.
especially if you've ever had like lion's mane or king oyster,
Hmm.
or sorry, king trumpet or oyster, any of these other like exotic mushrooms, the structure that they are and the way you can cook them, you can really like kind of mimic meat in a way. And that was like crucial for me, I feel like, because I was so satiated off that for it was about my first year and a half where I was more on that side of doing stuff.
Hmm.
So I do personally believe in transition. I think transition is crucial and I believe it's different for everybody. Obviously, like a basic transition would be cook plant-based to maybe adding in a lot more raw with maybe some cooked, and then fully raw. And then
Yeah.
obviously then you want to get into the fasting. There's a whole protocol for that. But I do think the plant-based lifestyle is a little bit different to feel good. I think it's a little bit more of like a learning process.
Hmm.
I think it takes time. Detox is not fun. So it's a good thing to be patient with
Yeah.
yourself with detox and to
Yeah.
not mistake detox for malnourishment, because there's a big difference. And fortunately, the way our body stores things and things like that, we hold on to a lot of nutrition. We hold on to a lot of the animal proteins and fats for years and years until you get them out, to where I really encourage people, if they're trying to clean out the body and they're trying to change their lifestyle, to be patient with themselves and to really sit with, these symptoms, and to really, not just want to take like the easy way out and be like, oh, I'm 2 days into not eating, I don't feel good, I'm malnourished. Like, that's not
Hmm.
the case typically. It's
Hmm.
typically there's a lot of toxins we stored. You're finally letting it come out. The toxins are going into the bloodstream, and you're not going to feel good from that. But I will say that I had some times with that years ago where, like, for example, one thing I was dealing with at the beginning of my fasting would, like, I would stand up and like my head would like start spinning and I would like not feel good. And then within like a few seconds, I'd be okay. But just like detox symptoms like that went away entirely after doing a couple, long fast or longer
Wow.
fast.
See, it's amazing what the fasting can really do for us. It really is. Like, if we really stick to it, it's really incredible.
Yeah, it really is. So I recommend people be patient with themselves. This isn't a marathon, especially if you're trying to, like, eat healthier for life. Like, it's better to not just like see where someone on the internet is and just be like, I need to be there. Just take it at your own pace and do what you personally feel is best. Try to follow your intuition and not just what you see on the internet. Although there's great information we can get off of this podcast that I've learned so much from you and your guests and stuff, to where we could take bits and pieces of that and incorporate it into our life, of course. But I just recommend people to be easy with themselves. And if you
Hmm.
do slip up, if you do go back to certain stuff, enjoy it. because I think it's much. I've heard like Dan McDonald say that too. You know, it's like if
True.
you if you slip up, just enjoy it because it's like I think it's much worse when your mind's racing and you're stressing yourself out about it when you're if you slip up rather than just enjoying it, having a good time when you do slip up and just be in tune with your body, especially if you go a few months without something or a
Hmm.
few years or something, you're going to be more tuned in. You're going to feel what that stuff that maybe isn't the best for you is going to do to you. So enjoy
True.
it, but be tuned into that. And then that's going to be your knowledge with it moving forward. And, and look at that as a lesson, not a mistake, you know?
Yeah, well said. Well, this has been amazing, Stephen. Thank you for sharing. And you're such a great speaker. I've really enjoyed listening to everything in your whole experience. If there's anything else you want to share to end off with, then let us know. And are you on social media? I'm not too sure.
I am, yeah. So I am on Instagram. I did just start a YouTube, but I haven't made anything yet. I've had the idea for the channel. I've been waiting till I put on a few extra pounds. So in about a week or two, I was gonna make my first video. But yeah, I am on Instagram. I have you on there. It's
Yep.
just my name, Stephen Hackett, and
Yep.
I have a YouTube channel. I don't know if you want me to say it
Yeah.
or if
Well,
you
I can
want
put all the links down below too. Yeah.
me to.
Whatever
Okay.
you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the YouTube channel is called A Path Back to Purity.
Nice.
I am going to be just talking about a lot of different things with how you can get back to getting the pure state that we are. Like I saw your kids when you were there. We were always we were pure, and most of us have
True.
stayed pure, or some of us have stayed pure, but it is a process to kind of get back to that purity. And that's one thing I've been learning. So that's going to be what that channel has been all about. I've been waiting till I stack up a lot more knowledge and trial and error and things like that to be able to create this channel to
Yeah.
hopefully get people on a good path. But yeah, that is what I just started. I created the channel a few months ago and going to start uploading on that soon.
Yeah.
And
Awesome. Good. I think it'll be great because you're so good behind the camera and you have a great way of communicating things. So I think it's great. Well, thank you again for coming on. I'll put all the links down below. And if you guys want to grab the juicer too that Stephen and I both use, you can save 75 bucks this week only. I'll put that link down below. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it added some value and inspiration to your day. Give this a big thumbs up. I'll put a good video on the screen for you guys to watch right now as well. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.